Along with the Hindenburg report, another man became very popular in India recently. I'm talking about Hungarian-American billionaire George Soros. Soros gave a speech at the Munich Security Conference where he claimed that the whole Hindenburg controversy may damage Prime Minister Modi's stranglehold, he used the word, on India's national government. He added, and I quote, "I could be foolish, but I think democracy will flourish in India again." India responded saying that Soros is an old, rich and opinionated person sitting in New York who still believes his views should determine how the entire world works. And in a way, our Foreign Affairs Minister was right in making that statement. George Soros, through his organization called the Open Society Foundation, has reportedly invested over $128 million since January 2021 to Democratic candidates and causes in the US. Soros has money, and he's not been shy to spend it on supporting and promoting political causes he believes in. He's a self-proclaimed philanthropist who had vowed to fight nationalists and conservative governments worldwide, which he often refers to as authoritarian governments. Now the Hungarian-American billionaire is handing over the reins of his $25 billion empire to his son Alexander. Alex is the second youngest child of Soros. He says he is more political than his father and plans to continue donating family money to left-leaning US political candidates. Will this handover have implications for the US and the rest of the world? We debate, but before we get into this conversation, let's quickly listen in to what George Soros had to say about Prime Minister Modi and democracy in India.
India is an interesting case. It's a democracy, but its leader, Narendra Modi, is no Democrat. Inciting violence against Muslims was an important factor in his meteoric rise. Modi maintains close relations with both open and closed societies. India is a member of the Quad, which also includes Australia, the US, and Japan. But it buys a lot of Russian oil at a steep discount and makes a lot of money out of it. Reverting to India, Modi and business tycoon Adani are close allies. Their fate is intertwined. Adani Enterprises tried to raise funds in the stock market but failed. Adani is accused of stock manipulation and his stock collapsed like a house of cards. Modi is silent on the subject, but he will have to answer questions from foreign investors and in Parliament. This will significantly weaken Modi's stranglehold on India's federal government and open the door to push for much-needed institutional reforms.
So there you heard it. Taking this conversation forward with me on the broadcast is Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee. I also have with me Aman Agarwal, Sharat Kohli and Joyita Basu. Let me begin this conversation with Ambassador Mukherjee. Ambassador Mukherjee, we've been discussing George Soros for quite some time now, but the latest development is the fact that he is handing over the reins to his son Alex, who claims to be even more political than his father. Now, we've seen over the past few years, through some of the digging that we've also done, it's on your screens, viewers, the sort of money that George Soros has and is willing to pump in to political causes that he backs and believes in. There are elections coming up in the US as well. There are elections coming up in India as well. We've already seen that there's been a hint of meddling in elections as far as even India is concerned. Do we need to be concerned about something right now, given that he's handing over to a person who claims that he wants to continue and in fact increase the scope of what the family has been doing?
But Devika, we don't have to be concerned about which of his 5 children he favors, and it could very well be that his second youngest son is his favorite today and could be out of a job tomorrow because he's apparently a maverick. So we don't have to bother about that. The point is, his appointed successor says he's left liberal, and that he will continue funding political causes. That is something the Americans should think about, particularly the Republicans. As far as India is concerned, there have been persistent rumors that the trip of Rahul Gandhi to United States could have also been to get funding for the upcoming general election next year in India, because it is well known that Congress coffers are virtually empty and they desperately need funds. Now, George Soros specializes in what Professor Nalapat loves to call, he's not here today, the toolkit. So the toolkit is different ways of bringing down an elected democracy, or to try to manipulate the result of a free and fair election in a manner that would suit the political aims of the donor. So in this particular case, if George Soros or his appointed heir decides to pour in a lot of money to those who oppose the present government, the question here is that will it really influence the results of a free and fair election in this vast country, which has proved time and again that it goes for development mantras and that it has rejected the politics of money. So yes, it is something to be concerned about, and we need to put the necessary checks and balances in place. But I doubt if George Soros, whom we heard just now, you played him out for me, whether he has a correct understanding of the vast universe which is our motherland, how complex and complicated it is, and the US dollars being funneled through, I presume, illegal channels into India to fund parties which are inimical to the present government. Is it really going to have an impact in determining the result of the election? I somehow feel not.
Okay.
But definitely need to be,
yes,
and we need to be vigilant about it.
Absolutely, fair enough. Joyita, of course, like Ambassador Baswati Mukherjee also said, we perhaps don't need to be concerned about the result of the election or what the Indian voter will think. But when you talk about money-backed politics, a lot of that also comes with the setting of many narratives. And whether we like it or not, politics is a lot about perception, politics is a lot about narratives. Is that something that we just need to be extra careful about? And is that something that we need to perhaps do to counter the fact that there are people who are sitting in America? George Soros is an old man, he's 92, he's probably wanting to retire, but he's bringing in a fresh mind, some youthful energy. God only knows what his son's plans are. He's made it very clear in his first statement, it's been against Trump. So he's not shy really of presenting what is it that he believes in truly. But do we need to somewhere be a lot more vigilant, given that we've also seen in the recent past that there have just been a series of events which it's difficult to digest, that they're all, there's no link between them, that it's all just a coincidence that there are attempts to derail trains somewhere, or there are attempts of fake information, misinformation. All of it can't be a coincidence. The money is coming in from somewhere.
Absolutely, Devika. Now, first of all, let's not forget the money is illegal. Because you see, no political party in this country is allowed to take money from foreign individuals or foreigners like that, or foreign organizations. It's illegal. So if the government wants, if the government starts tracing and tracking that money, it can easily find from where the money is coming. So I'm certain that the government is working on that, and if you cut that source of money, a lot of these things will kind of fall back in place. Whatever had been the disruptive activities that had gone on, that we have been witnessing as the elections approach nearer, that would be kind of coming down. The intensity of that, the frequency of that will be coming down. That is how they, in fact, I would say, managed the Kashmir Valley to a large extent, by tracing the money and cutting off that money source, So, I am certain they can do something about it. First of all, track the money. Then of course, you have to be vigilant, constant vigilance, The thing is, you see, but at the same time, let's not undermine our faith in the common voter. All right, because when you are talking to the common voter, there is already a buzz on the ground, which is like irrespective of whatever the assembly election results will be. When it comes to 2024, their buzz has already started कि देखो मोदी को कोई काम करने के लिए वो काम कर रहे हैं, उसको काम नहीं करने देगा, इसलिए ये सब कर रहे हैं. So you see, once that buzz catches on and once that thing catches on that all these people are getting together, a bunch of people are all there together to serve their own interests, and here is this one man who is trying to do something about India, trying to take India forward. You see, the minute that kind of thing happens, no amount of billions spent by Soros or baby Soros or whatever Soros that is will be able to help them get the desired result. But yes, having said that, as Mr. Jaishankar had said, recently, that here we have a very old and dangerous man. I think he is now being replaced by a young and a very dangerous man. So yes, we need to be very vigilant, and I am certain the diaspora also in the US will be very vigilant. Now, if when it comes to this particular chap, now, but if you have noticed something very interesting, even in the diaspora, even those people who were seen to be anti the current government, they are also changing their tune. Say someone like Ro Khanna, who we had kind of, if you remember 3-4 years back, he was going hammer and tongs about the present government in India, about it being fascist, this, that, whole lot of things. Now, Mr. Ro Khanna, all of them have just changed their tune. I wonder what is going on. And if Mr. Soros is so influential, how is it that beyond a point, beyond, I would say, the domestic matters, which I would say are outrageously, silly at times, with all this transgender thing and all, the Antifa that is going on. Now, beyond that, why is Mr. Soros's intervention, for example, not being able to stop Mr. Modi's visit, his state visit, his dinner? So, all these things, his address to the Congress, why isn't he able to stop? That is because India is doing something right. So, all these Soroses with their billions and with their animosity towards India and with all their love for certain people in India, they can do only this much, a little bit. The rest of it, the Indian people will take care of.
Absolutely. Sharad Kohli, let me bring you into the conversation. There are some serious allegations against the Open Society Foundation that George Soros leads. For example, it is said that the anti-CA protests, the orchestrator of the protests, Harsh Mandar, is on George Soros's payroll. Then the Soros's Open Society Foundation, an NGO funded by it called Chopra, they tried to thwart the India-France Rafale deal in 2018. He also funds Forbidden Stories, which provided false information to a publication regarding Israeli spyware Pegasus. These are serious allegations, and this is, of course, regarding George Soros. There are also some concerning things that have come out about his son, how he's been, it's been alleged that he spent a lot of money to, in fact, overturn the results of the 2020 presidential elections in the US. So these are not people who are perhaps just, feeding in Twitter bots and, bots online to just maybe promote one tweet there, one tweet here, one article there, one. This is an organization, it's a large web that is running that wants to really control the narrative and control a lot of information that is going out and perhaps supplemented with a lot of disinformation. That is something that we ought to be prepared for.
Well, absolutely, Devika. When you've got lots of money and your intentions are not good, these things are most likely to happen. On a lighter note, I was just watching the interview on your screen, we need to give him some tips on the aesthetics, because I'm surprised somebody having a $25 billion organization wearing a shirt which is twice his size, and probably the tie going towards Japan. So I think he needs some tips. I think the lesson to learn is when you're old enough, you should not even come on camera. You should not give statements, which have been prepared by somebody else, and you're just there to read the statement. Now, a man whose real name, not many people know. His real name is not George Soros. His real name is Jodorowsky Swords, and he was a Hungarian. And during the World War, he changed his name because of the Nazi issue. Anyway, let's not go into the history. But then, the basic career started from the fact that he wanted to teach England a lesson. And the famous Bank of England, destruction that he did when he sold about $10 billion, and he made about £1.5 billion or $1.5 billion at that time when he borrowed money, and that's how the hedge fund started. Quantum Fund was the name of the hedge fund, I remember. Now, also not many people know, Devika, that why did the hedge fund close? Because SEC, which is equivalent to SEBI in India, they asked for transparency. There was no transparency in the Quantum Fund. And Mr. Soros objected to that. We are not going to submit properly transparent transaction records to SEC. Because of that, he decided to shut down his Quantum Fund. Now, my question is, if the Quantum Fund has been shut down, where is Mr. Soros still getting his funds? Is it the investments? Are those investments legitimate? Has the American government ever bothered to go into deep dive into the fact, where has he got the money from? Where is he generating funds from? As for his successor, I only hope, wish and pray, I think my panelists would agree, like a lot of American successors, he would probably end up burning and spending that money on luxury rather than spending on the propaganda which his father has been doing all this while. I think we don't need to be worried, as I agree with Joyita. What you need to do is, because where do these funds come from? There are only two ways, for the benefit of NewsX viewers, Devika. There are only two ways to bring funds to India. One is when you're bringing an international donation. First of all, political party cannot, but you can bring donation into an NGO. That is called the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, FCRA. Now, let me inform that Home Ministry is super strict about bringing funds through FCRA, and permissions are not being given very, very easily. You have to go through a very rigorous process to explain as to where are the funds coming from, what's the purpose, who's sending it, where are the funds being applied, and so on and so forth. That's one way. The second way is through the Hawala transaction, because that's the only way where the funds can siphon in without the government knowing. I think that is where I agree with Joyita. Checks and balances have to be in place. You need to crack down on these Hawala dealers to see that there are no funds landing here, because the reason for concern is because freebies has become the new election winner. You give away free electricity to people, give away free 2,000 rupee notes to people, give away cash to people, give away so many things to people, and you can win an election. I think history has proved that. So I think that is where the concern is, that if this illegitimate money, if it flows into the country through nefarious means, I think then we can really, because the electorate of the country is gradually getting used to the freebies, which is where the concern of the Prime Minister comes from so many times. That if you get used to freebies, you are spoiling the habit of the electorate. The electorate gets used to that. If I'm getting a free bus travel, I get free electricity bill, I'll probably look at a short-term benefit and vote for that government. That's where this money is of concern, Devika. So I think the government of India needs to get on its toes with this successor coming in. You should crack down on the Hawala dealers, whatever deals are going on between any of the political parties and America for that matter. I think that needs to be investigated. The funnels need to be plugged. All the loopholes need to be plugged so that no money comes in. As for the history of Mr. Soros is concerned, I think, Devika, I'll summarize and call it as a cup of sorrows, unfortunately.
Right, absolutely. Aman Agarwal also with us on the broadcast. Aman, what do you make of this handing over by George Soros of his empire to his young son, who, like I said again, like I've said previously rather, has come out very vociferously. Of course, they've never been shy of supporting the Democrats and Democratic candidates. And clearly the son takes after the father. He also, in his first statement, has spoken out against Trump. What do you make of the situation? How do you think this is going to play out as far as the US is concerned, even if we keep the India aspect aside for a minute?
You see, first of all, out of his 5 children, he has chosen one of them to take care of his empire and the investments he has made in terms of creating money and wealth. Secondly, it's important to understand that it seems that he has groomed him well in terms of the philosophy, in terms of the structure which he believes in. It is also seen in the last 20, 25 years or so that he has actually earned out of debacles which he has created or has been able to create through market manipulations, whether it was a question of Bank of England, pound falling, and a lot of other frameworks which have come into play from time to time, or even stock market crashes which have happened in the United States. So the market is well aware of his, modus operandi in terms of being a market maker, being a big name in the investment division, people following him, people looking at him in terms of making moves. And as a result, he makes his money out of those kind of structures. And that's what he's been famous for and known for. So
Right.
I think the steps would be similar with the son who is taking over, where he would play both in the political as well as investment arena in terms of making money for the group in the same way as his father has been doing. As far as the steps which need to be taken are, as even Sharad said a few minutes back, is to keep a close watch on what is going on and what is not happening, both within the country and overseas. Today, it is not necessarily the money transfer which takes place through Hawala. There are a large number of online mediums which can be utilized, including products like cryptocurrencies and currencies like Bitcoins and others, which are actually getting traded. Does not mean that it is used as a currency, but still is getting traded. So there are a lot of mediums today which can be utilized in terms of transfer of funds and misappropriation of the pool of understanding which is there amongst the people, whether it's a question of elections or it's a question of markets, movements and behaviors. So from that perspective, the government needs to take a cautious move. But as an investment framework, there are not only one, but there are hundreds of George Soros which are there across the globe. And we cannot take moves against all of them. We need to keep our eyes open and keep our home guards well in place. I think the Reserve Bank of India, from that perspective, in the last decade or so, has worked extensively in terms of creating some of these guards, specifically in the field of money laundering and the way money has been coming into this country, whether it is a question of money getting routed through Singapore or through China or through some of the other tax havens around the globe.
Right, absolutely. Ambassador Mukherjee, also just, trying to get your thought on how do you think this is going to play out in the US as far as the US elections are concerned?
The US elections, clearly he's going to try and influence left-leaning liberal candidates. Not that there are so many left in the United States in my perspective, which means I presume that he will try to fund the Democrats, which means that it's Biden. So I don't think that is such a big deal for us, because it's not yet clear to us who is Biden's challenger. But it would appear that if it's not Trump, he has a clear possibility of a victory, of getting re-elected, though he'll be the oldest president probably in the United States when he gets re-elected. The problem for us, exactly as Dr. Kohli pointed out, and my co-panelist just thereafter, is how to ensure, since there are so many different ways in which this money can flow into India, not just FCRA, which used to be in the old days. We have to be very vigilant to make sure that this kind of money is not utilized for the toolkit, or to try to influence in some crucial states the results of the election, which could tip the balance one way or the other, because every general election in India, and I remember Prime Minister Bajpayee said it, when he went in for the election and he lost, and everybody thought he would win, and all the foreign ambassadors had said he was going to win, and he lost the election. That elections in India are extremely unpredictable because it's a vibrant democracy, and therefore these kind of issues can tip the balance. So we need to be very vigilant about it.
Absolutely.
And we need to be very, very careful about money flows. So I'm glad you got two economists here because they, I think, gave a very good perspective on the dangers which are lurking there for India, for India's democracy, precisely because it's now much easier to bring these kind of funds into India.
Absolutely. And Joyita, just getting your perspective on the same, how do you think this will probably impact the US? Because whether we like it or not, whoever is in power in the US does have a bearing on our relations with the country.
Well, actually, you see, whichever power is there, I mean, our job is, our relations are basically irrespective of their domestic politics. Now, if we start basing our decisions, how we are approaching the US, according to which dispensation is in power, then I think that's a failure of diplomacy. No one treats like that, you know. You're just the way mostly foreign policy is constant, generally constant when it comes to a country. Similarly, if it is constant, it has to be constant irrespective of the fact whether Trump or Biden is there. But having said that, perhaps I think, you know, instead of I would say making an enemy out of Soros and company, which they already are, why not have some kind of track 2, track 3 kind of an outreach, because, and show them that, you know, basically they are being fed with a lot of misinformation and disinformation. And it is understandable, because we saw the kind of people who were surrounding Rahul Gandhi, they are all agenda driven people. So these agenda driven people only are feeding their bosses all that nonsense about India. So how do you cut that out? The way to do it is, you see, and we have a huge diaspora. Let sections of the diaspora make an outreach to these very old and young dangerous men and find out what exactly, and tell them that, listen, whatever you are being fed is actually nonsense. You know, I'm certain, you see, I'm certain they are not focused on India. Okay, I mean, India is one of the sideshows for them.
Yes.
So, I mean, they are not personally monitoring India. They do not have any contacts with Indian leaders except for perhaps a particular political party. So, why not make an outreach and try to drive some sense into these people? You know, they are very dangerous, no doubt about it. They are very nasty people.
Right.
Okay, they operate according to their own interests. But for God's sake, we are not a pushover. We are not a pushover or a banana republic that wants Soros and Soros's son will be able to destabilize India.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.